Back then, you were making 3 grand a month. And I said, you know what, dude? You get to 10K a month, I actually fly you out to Dubai.
I didn't think it was possible either. And yeah, man, here we are.
If you hadn't done and if you only relied on the inbound calls, how much commissions would you have lost?
Probably half.
So like 6 grand.
Or 6.
So that's 72 grand a year. Bro, you're driving. All right, welcome to this episode. June, you got a haircut,
I did.
and then
Yes.
you got a reverse tan. So
A little bit.
We
A couple
actually
extra tattoos as well.
we replaced June with this is Nick. By the way, I flew Nick out to Dubai all the way from Oklahoma. I don't know anything about Oklahoma except for OKC Thunder.
That's really it. Yeah.
Back when they were cool. But the reason why Nick is here, so random, flew all the way across the world, is because, you know, in real sales system, once you get to level 9, I actually fly you out to Dubai. So I pay for a plane ticket to Dubai and back home. You just pay for everything else. I'm a brokey right now, so I can't get you business class, but get us more members and one day I'll fly a private jet to your backyard. But Nick was an exception because Nick saw that level 9 reward, that the prize. And Nick messaged me on Instagram. I was like, hey, dude, if I hit 10K a month, do I qualify as level 9? And I said, you know what, dude? You get to 10K a month and you give me 3 referrals, I'll qualify as level 9.
Yep.
And I mean, I didn't know he was gonna hit it, right? Because in like a 1 month time frame. And at that time, I was training Nick at that time. And he did it. He actually hit 10K a month and he got 3 referrals before the deadline. So now he's here. So Nick, welcome to Dubai, man.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was possible either because, I mean, commissions beforehand were like 3 times less. So was averaging 3K, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, we were training together and I was like, well, let's see what we can do. See what we can, if we can put these trainings together. And yeah, man, here we are. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I mean, do you put in the work? So
Yeah.
take us back. Back then, you were making 3 grand a month. So what
Yeah.
were some of the things, like some problems you're running into in your sales? What was happening?
Well, I spent a lot of time training, you know, 14, 15-hour days, just locked into the lab, you know, learning anything and everything that I possibly could at sales in the moment. And one of the things that you kind of gave me a really good reminder on is just to keep things very, very simple. And when I was going through my process, I just realized how complicated I was making it. And it didn't need to be that way. You know, I had 16 different questions to ask in certain places that weren't even necessary, right? Like, especially if you're looking more like trying to chunk down to the problem. I didn't need all of those, right? Just more focusing on the actual conversation at hand and what's at task and being present rather than just trying to be like what we call like a script kiddie, right? That was probably one of the biggest things. And I mean, also working with you, just understanding how to speak with conviction in my actual process and with the prospects that I'm talking to. That's one of the biggest sellers out there, I feel like, nowadays.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you are on a new offer, right, there are times where people just don't really, you're not too sure, like as far as like what the fulfillment looks like, right? You're not too sure on what the actual product is in itself, right? But then if you speak with certainty and you speak like you know that this can actually help the prospect, then they will follow your lead, right? And then you pair that with good belief systems, and that's kind of what happened, man.
Yeah, because I saw your script and then it was, dude, the problem section was like fucking 3 pages long.
Yeah.
I was like, because you were selling trading, right? So it's like the return percentage and I don't even know what all that lingo was.
I
It's
didn't
like-
either, which is even crazier. And I was the one selling it.
Exactly. So using that type of scripting, right? Because it's not like you're like a complete new. You've been through different sales programs. You're in a pretty good offer at the time. And so, you know, all those different questions you were asking, what kind of problems were you facing? Like with the prospects reacting to you, what was happening on the calls?
It just wasn't flowing. Like it wasn't conversational at
Okay.
the end of the day. And I saw one of your posts like 10 minutes before I came here. And it was the exact same thing. Like we all have that one guy on that offer that we know where it's like, okay, it doesn't sound like they're going off of a script. It just sounds very conversational. They're not robotic. And they're the ones that are laying down sales,
Yeah.
right? And I would say that, to be
Okay.
honest.
So it being complicated, what did that
Yeah.
do to the sales?
Oh, dude, it was destroying it.
Destroying?
Yeah, destroying it. Like I was just getting lost in my own process, right? And because of that, like I wasn't sure where to take the conversation. Things would spiral one way and I wouldn't be able to get control back of the conversation, which would then lead to, as we all know, like a million think about it objections, right?
Okay. And then when you're getting slammed with those objections, how did they make you feel?
Dude, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. because you're just going down the spiral where it's like, dude, why do I keep getting the same objection? Right. And it's like, well, got to do something about it. It's time to make a change.
So we started working together, and then at the time, obviously for you, it's like, okay, it's like a new, like a framework, like a new kind of training, because at the time you're getting like a different methodology, right, with the other trainer.
Right.
And then did you have any skepticism or like hesitancy? It's like, yeah, I don't know, like, will this really work? Like what kind of things were going through your mind when you were getting like in touch with that?
As far as working with like you?
Yeah.
I was open to it, man.
Yep.
And like, cause we still have like, we have a very similar methodology as well. And the trainer that I was paired up with beforehand actually had a different process. So understanding that and kind of going back and, you know, relearning some of the things that I learned beforehand and trying to forget some other bad habits that I might have picked up along the way. I was super excited actually to work with you, and I was very open-minded to it. I know a lot of people can have skepticism, you know, when it comes to putting your entire sales process into someone else's hands, right?
Yep.
Because that's their income at the end of the day. But I mean, if you don't really believe, or if you're, it's like the saying goes, right? Like rich people, they don't become rich by thinking everything's a scam or like that everything isn't going to work out. It's typically the opposite, right? And if you have that same mindset where it's like, okay, well, let's try it out. Let's see what happens.
That's fair enough. I mean, we have our prospects be open-minded, so why aren't we open-minded to change?
Exactly.
Right? So
right.
that makes perfect sense. Okay, cool. So we worked on different things, but like, what were some of the things we started working on that you found helpful?
Oh man. Gosh, there's so many. If I had to say the biggest thing that we've changed, would really be just gaining control of the conversation by having the right timing in the questions that I'm asking. Having the right probes, for me, changed everything.
Okay.
Because that allowed me to have more confidence into the direction that I want to take the call. It allowed me to have control of the conversation so I could actually direct it where I wanted it to go, right? And it also allowed me to just keep things more conversational without having to like, you know, they would tell me a problem and then all of a sudden maybe, you know, like we're in like the whole problem section of the script, right, of the process. And then like there would be times where I would just like let it breeze by because I'm like, oh, we're not there yet. Let me go back to those problems when I get to that portion of the process. But having the right probes and being able to understand where I'm at in the process helped me out a lot, I would say. And then we've changed a lot. I mean, I remember we spent the first probably 2 or 3 coaching calls, like in the first 5 minutes of conversation. And you were like, no, do this again. Do this again. Doesn't sound good enough.
Yeah. It's the unsexy part because everyone wants to go into like, Brian, what's the fear of your friend? Tell me about that.
Yeah.
It's like, no, okay, let's calm down, right? Because a lot of times sale is lost in the first 5 minutes because closers have a difficult time actually uncovering the prospect problem.
Yeah.
Because they think that, oh, I want to make more money or I want to get better at this. That's more than enough of a problem. That's not really a problem, right? That's what they want. But what's the thing that's actually preventing them from getting them to where they want to go? And more importantly, how's it actually affecting them?
Yeah.
Right? So what are some of the things, like you, for example, you're selling to either people brand new to trading or experienced traders wanting to make more money, right?
Right.
So how did it, like what kind of reactions were you seeing before that you're able to learn that, and after what kind of things were happening on the calls?
Yeah, it was just a bunch of surface level questions. And I also think too, like when you're in that connecting part, right, you want to be able to understand the difference between an ideology and an actual outcome, right? Like get more money, like that's more of an idea than anything, right? But what is that money going to actually allow them to do that they can't do right now, right? And then when you actually uncover that part, you peel back, you know, the banana peel a little bit more, then you're really able to drive your process into whatever it is that they're trying to get, right?
Yeah. Okay. So let's give people a little bit of sauce, right?
Yeah.
So in the problem area, some people have some trouble uncovering problems. So what are some of the questions that you learned that helped you like uncover the problem, go deeper? What are some examples?
Oh yeah, a couple things. So one of my favorite ones, and this is more like a trading offer, but you can use this anywhere. You know, it's what have you seen or what have you been seeing in XYZ that's causing you to, you know, XYZ.
Yeah.
Right. That's probably one of my favorite ones. Like that's my go-to because it's like an instant kill.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm doing this. Oh, why are you doing that? I don't know. Well, if you thought about it. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. I don't.
That question is also good, by the way. Oh, why are you doing that?
Why are you doing that?
You're asking a confused, curious, but let's say, for example, what are you doing to make more money with trading, right? What are you doing to get better returns? And they're like, I'm doing like whatever the they're saying, right? Like the what would they say? Like the sink and swim or whatever it is. I still don't even know, right? I have to enroll for it that I took some class. I still don't know to this day. But they'll say whatever. And then they'll say like, is it working? And then they'll say like, yes or no, it's not working because of da da da. My stop losses aren't in place. And then you go, oh, why are you doing it that way?
Yeah.
You ask it that way in that tone, what it does, it actually seeds doubt in their mind, right? It seeds doubt
Exactly
like,
right.
oh, like, am I not supposed to do it that way? Is it the
Yeah.
problem, right? I give this example. When I walked into like the skincare product store in Korea, because I was trying to get some stuff, I was gonna buy one lotion for $10. And then I walked in, and then
It's an expensive piece of lotion.
the cashier, like whatever it is, right? And then I was gonna walk out with like $10, and then the cashier girl or like the staff person
Yeah.
was asking me some questions. Like, okay, like what are you trying to do? I'm like, well, I'm trying to get my skincare fixed. Okay, what are you doing for skincare now? And in my mind, I was like, situation
wow.
questions.
Put you through the process.
Situation
The
questions.
Uno reverse.
Exactly, right? Oh, like, what are you doing for skincare? And I was like, well, nothing. She's like, she's literally having that reaction.
Yeah.
In my mind, I was like, well, should I be doing skincare? Like, it's like, and then after that point, I started listening to her advice, even though I don't know any of her fucking credibility.
Yeah.
She's not a doctor. She's some random girl that's working in a skincare product store. Not to demean her, but in a way that I don't know her credibility. But I started taking her advice. I walked out with like $80 worth of lotion because I was like, she needs D, da da da. I was like, okay, fair enough. So that's what it seeds doubt, right? And the other question of what have you seen in your XYZ situation that has you looking for XYZ outcome?
Yeah.
That I've taught that to people, and it becomes such a predictable, phase of that conversation.
Yeah.
Because okay, what have you seen in your results you're trading now that has you wanting for better strategies? Because wanting for better strategies is not enough, right? But when you ask it that, seeing is a visual cue.
Yeah.
So what do they have to do? They have to go back to their whatever situation is, whatever it be, like in their current business, in their job, whatever.
Right.
And then, oh yeah, I'm not making enough money. I'm not getting enough leads. I'm not getting better quality leads.
Yeah.
Now they tell you that thing. And after that, it becomes a lot easier for you to probe and clarify to go deeper into the problem.
Yeah. And I had another, a really good friend of mine, Craig. He kind of gave me some really good insights too. And he was saying to listen to the, like, it's a little bit more like advanced, but a little bit more of the nuances in the words. And you'll be able to pick up on certain tendencies and certain types of personality types when you do that. And he was telling me, like, listen out to when people say the words like feel, right? Or when they use the word see, or even when they use the word hear, right? Because that tells you what type of person they are. If they say, oh, I'm feeling like I'm not getting XYZ, then you can drive a lot more of like those feeling type of questions into your process, right? So for example, they're like, yeah, I just don't feel like I'm as profitable as I should be. Well, why do you feel like you're not as profitable as you should be? Or what have you seen in XYZ that has you feeling like ABC, right? Or if they say, I'm not seeing the results that I want. Well, what are you seeing in your process that has you feeling like you're not getting the right returns, right? Just small little things like that. And even now, like I'm still learning, like it's crazy how deep this rabbit hole can go.
Yeah, 100%. And so you can actually use that throughout the sales call. For example, if you're asking, hey, so you being able to make 20 grand a month, what would that allow you to do? Like, how would that look like?
Yeah.
Right? So if they're a visual person, like, oh, I would look forward to, like, if they're using words like look or see, then you just tailor the conversation. It's more advanced, but you tailor the conversation in that case, right?
Exactly
Or
right.
when you're doing the pitch, right?
Yeah.
Hey, so first thing we're going to help you with is this, right? Do you see how that works?
Yeah.
But if they're a visual person, right? Or let's say, for example, let's say like a tactical person, right? Hey, you feel me? Does that make sense?
Right.
Sense, tactical, right?
Right.
And so, you want to have that acuity and that awareness of what kind of prospect you're talking to. So that's absolutely great. Okay, so that's one of the skill set part. And we also worked on activity, right? Activity and process.
Oh, yeah.
So that's another part. So what did you learn there that made any difference in your sales?
Yeah, well, we've already talked about the skill set, right? And skill set comes with time. Like no matter who you are, right? It's just one of those things where you can't rush it, and there's nothing you can do to really have the same sales experience as someone with 10 plus years. And one thing that I learned working with you was, well, what you can't make up for in skill set, you make up for in activity and process, right? You just get in more reps, and that's just by doing more. Right? You can be paired up with someone that has those 10 years of experience. That could just be like a princess closer that's just waiting on calls to come in. But if you're actually out there hunting, you can still beat him every single month if you really put your head down and work. Someone with a 40% close rate doesn't mean anything if they're only closing like 2 deals out of the 10. But if you're going out there and you're throwing out 40 offers and you're closing 4, you still closed more than him, right? And that's kind of like a side conversation, right? Just don't get me started on skill set and close rate in itself. But yeah, I would say just upping everything, more dials, more offers. I had like, it was what, a 65%, 50% offer rate when you came in.
Yeah.
And you're like, why is your offer rate so low? I'm like, isn't that how it's supposed to be? And you're like, no, like you should be at least like 90+%. And next month, same exact thing. Like I would say the first day after we started like working on that, I had 2 calls on my calendar. And then on my tracker sheet, I had 6 offers that I threw out. And the others were just from outbound closes. Right. And then surely that's how the 10K month started.
Yeah.
And that's the whole roadmap that we had listed out.
Yeah. So why was your offer rate so low? Or what's happening there? So by the way, for offer rate for people that are listening is let's say you have 10 sales calls that actually show up on your calendar on your Zoom. And then if you pitch them, you make them an offer to 5 people, that's an offer rate of 50%. And then if you don't make an offer for whatever reason, whatever, right? So why was the offer rate low at that time?
In all honesty, I think it was just because I didn't feel like I had the conversation won at that point where I felt comfortable with pitching. It's like, because I remember hearing this saying a long time ago, where it's like, if you don't feel like they're going to say yes, then don't pitch them. And I just wasn't confident in my process where I'm like, okay, maybe I should just do like a 2-call close and just push this back even more. Right. And then half the time they would just fall through the cracks because like the conversation wasn't even that effective or efficient in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's just like this like infinite feedback loop. And I'm like, and I asked myself, I'm like, why are you doing that? Like
There we
right
go.
afterwards. You know, sometimes you have to sell yourself and like run yourself through your own process to figure things out too. But
Yeah, 100%. Because if you don't pitch them, now guess what? You have a 0% chance of closing that.
Yeah.
But even if you had the shittiest call, but you still make them an offer, then guess what? Now you at least have a 1% chance.
Right.
That doesn't mean that everyone needs to be pitched, because sometimes if they have a problem and they genuinely like, for example, if you sell marketing, right? And then let's say they have like a sales issue, their marketing is like actually dialed in after you ask them questions. Okay, maybe it doesn't make sense, right? But if they actually have a problem that your business solves, then you better make them an offer.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, you're not doing demo service, you're not doing a service service. So that's one thing. And another thing we also worked on is, like we talked about, outbound closing.
yeah,
Because before you were just solely relying on the inbound book calls, right?
Exactly
And
right.
the thing with that is, like, what kind of issues were you having when you're solely relying on the inbound closes?
it's not consistent.
Yeah.
Because marketing will have ebbs and flows no matter what offer you're on. And if you are solely reliant on just the, leads coming in from the ads, there's a lot of things that aren't really, that you can't factor in, right? Like there could be a lot more uncertain leads. The targeting could be off where you're just speaking to broke leads all day, right? And if you're a commission only sales rep and your income relies solely on things that you can't even control, that makes no sense.
Yep.
So you might as well do everything that you can in your power to ensure that you're hitting the goals that you need to just really, 1, survive, and then 2, live the ideal lifestyle that you're wanting.
Yep, 100%. Okay,
Yeah.
so what were some of the things you learned in terms of outbound closing? That way you don't need a book call on your calendar. And by the way, that was the most liberating feeling I ever got when
man.
I was a full-time sales rep is,
Yeah.
oh, I don't need book calls on my calendar to actually make money.
Yeah.
That was oh my God, dude, I'm not a leaf in the wind anymore. That was such an amazing feeling. It sounds so simple.
Right.
But yes, book calls, fantastic. But what are you going to do when you don't have a call on your calendar or the person no-shows, right?
Yep.
So what are some of the techniques or some of the things you learned that actually made you actually go close deals when you didn't have a call on your calendar?
Some of the techniques is just understanding what type of lead list that I want to work with, right? Because if I have white space on my calendar, which is a sin, right, then I should at least be making sure that the time that I have blocked out is spent in the most productive way possible before my next call or before my next task, right? So I would just go after people that were closest to the money, right? If you had renewals or if you had people that were in the pipeline that were close to upselling, those would be the first person that I'm calling every single day, right? And just following up with them constantly over and over and over again. And I did something very similar to what you did. I don't know if obviously you remember, but I think it was on one of your podcasts. And you said you locked yourself in a room and you didn't go to bed till like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning until you closed the deal.
Yep.
And this was probably my first week actually going through and learning how to outbound close myself. And I didn't have a close that day. And I remembered that. I'm like, what would Brian do? And it was like 8 o'clock at night at this point. I'm like, man, I still haven't closed a deal today. I'm like 0 for 3 for the day. I'm like, something's got to change. And I'm like, I'm only at like $200. So yeah, I did the exact same thing. I locked myself in a room and I closed the deal like at 11:30 o'clock at night.
Good shit.
Yeah, man. And the guy was driving. I'm like, well, let me just see what happens. And pitched him, had him pull over, and then he bought basically on the spot. So very, very crazy. But like, I think a lot of it comes down to just being confident, right? Being confident in your sales process and knowing that you have something that can work to help somebody get to where they want to be, right? Because then, like, I think what a lot of closers are afraid of nowadays is like coming off as salesy.
Yeah.
Because that's like a really big thing, right? And it's like, well, yeah, but at the same time, like, do you want to care about how you're perceived and coming off as salesy, or do you actually want to help somebody?
Yep.
Right. And sometimes you have to be a little bit more aggressive on the phone. Sometimes you have to tell them like, hey, like pull over now and like let's get you in and let's get this thing going to help you in your future. Right. And when you get to a point where you don't even care about commissions anymore, right? You don't have that commission breath. You solely just want to help. It's a whole different game.
Yeah, 100%. I think that part of it is because people are trying to be neutral.
Yeah.
But the thing about being neutral is like people end up coming timid
Passive.
and
Yeah.
just too passive. Exactly. And because people are like, yeah, but Jeremy's neutral. But people don't know. Jeremy's highly assertive.
Yeah.
People just don't understand that because Jeremy comes off very like polite and like formal.
Right.
He's highly assertive. People just don't know because they can't see like the between the nuances, right?
Yeah.
So you can't be both neutral in like your words and your tonality because that comes off passive, right? And your tonality still gonna come
Exactly
off
right.
certain and with conviction because one thing you do well in particular is your sub communication is quite dialed in.
Yeah.
And when I say sub communication, your nonverbals like tonality, facial expression,
Yeah.
body language. Like you're a very personable, chill dude.
Yeah.
And at one point, I think you were a bit too nice, but and then you were dialed in more. Okay, like more conviction, more
Right.
certainty. So how can like what helped for you in order for you to be more certain and more conviction on your calls?
It's a very good question. It's a very good question. I might even think about this one.
You know what's funny is like whenever I ask this question to people, like they give the exact same reaction. Yeah, what? It did help me. Because it's
Yeah.
one of those things where like a script is okay, say these things. Okay, I say these things.
Right.
Objection something, I say these things. Like tonality is like, it's like, hey, how do you not fall off a bike? You turn 5 degrees to the left? No, like it's
Yeah.
kind of like a muscle memory kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I would say conviction was the biggest thing, but the way that I truly feel like helped me is some of the more like inner work. You know, because like you said, you can't really read a script on how to have more conviction in your tone. So for me, it was just really locking myself in, you know, meditating every single day, having the right routines, keeping my word like impeccable. Like if I said I was going to do something, I would do it. And I wouldn't go to sleep until that happened. Right. And having just a certainty in myself and in my knowing and in my process. And as a byproduct, that just kind of happened where the conviction increased as I, you know, started taking more calls. Right. And then you pair that up with more volume from more activity, you get more reps in. So you're able to dial in and tweak your process even more.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. And in terms of, because I know you got some sales from like referrals or like upsells, renewals, and like outbound clicking, so on and so forth. Now,
Right.
if you hadn't done that, and if you only relied on the inbound calls, how much commissions would you have lost?
Probably half.
Half of this.
I would say half.
Yeah, so like 5, like 6 grand, so on and so forth.
6. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's 72 grand a year.
Yeah.
So that's what I tell people is if I didn't do that, I would have lost out on like 100 something grand last year. Like same
Wow.
thing. And so I really want to like help people understand this because it's the most like the least sexy thing ever is like track your data and call leads. No one wants to hear that because when people get into the industry, the dream they get sold on is, oh, you know, it's super easy. You master sales within 90 days and
Yeah.
you get in a good offer
Yeah.
and then you get to 10K a month in 90 days. And from the beach, it doesn't
make 100K on a boat.
and that's why people say like as a high ticket closer. I don't like that term. I only say this so that people know that like they know who they are. But you are a sales professional
Yeah.
because you could be a high ticket closer, princess closer.
Yeah.
But you got to be okay with the consequences. And everything we do has a consequence. If you just sit there, don't dial leads during your time, and then you don't work on your stuff, then yeah, you got to be okay with the amount of commissions you're getting.
Yeah.
Now, if someone's 100% happy with that, hey, I'm not here to espouse my goals onto you. I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
But if someone's listening to this and they're not completely happy with where they are, then bro, you better be f***ing doing something. Like you can't have both. Either way has a consequence.
Exactly right. Yeah. And I think there's a huge problem nowadays, like with the high ticket closing space.
Yeah.
You know, because what's happening is the high ticket closer, in my opinion, is just a marketable term.
Yeah.
Right. Because like you said, you're a sales professional. You are supposed to find money and make it rain. That is your only responsibility.
Yep.
But what's happening is now the way that, you know, sales and being a closer is like portrayed, it's like it's supposed to be a very easy thing. Oh, talk to people and make 100K a year, like we were talking about. But what's happening now from what I've seen in just the industry is that it's creating a lot of offer hoppers. You You know, because when the bad times do come with the marketing, right, or a company is restructuring its funnel, or you're testing a million different things, and those ebbs and flows are starting to come in, they leave almost instantly. It's like, oh, I'm not getting 8 calls on my calendar a day anymore. Deuces. But you're supposed to, like, you have a whole pipeline, bruv. Like, there are 30,000 leads in the CRM. Like, make something happen.
Yep.
Right? Until you get to the point where, like, if everything is dry and it's like going on for months and months and months, like, that's a different conversation. But people will, you know, tap out within a week if they aren't getting closes on their calendar. It's like, well, no, dude. Like, you have to go out there and hunt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Don't get me
that's-
wrong.
that's-
If like marketing is just a bet, like there's a time and place for that. But
Yeah.
like people understand this. Marketing will shit the bed. It's not an if thing.
It's a when.
It is a when thing. Even
Yeah.
when I was selling for 8-figure companies,
Right.
like the most like established brand, like in the space,
Yeah.
even their marketing shit the bed at one point, right? But like eventually it picks up. So what are you gonna do in the meantime? Are you gonna have your dick in your hand and just complain about the market? I got this message from a community member the other day, and then they were saying like, oh, you know, and then there were a setter, and then yeah, my closer just complaining because there's not many leads and more calls, yada yada yada. They're talking shit in like long paragraphs, and then in the meantime, there's another guy that sells on that offer, that's a closer, and then he closed 4 deals in one day with 0 book call.
Attaboy.
With 0 book call, he closed 4 deals. How? By going to his pipeline. All of them are follow-up deals. Follow up, outbound follow up.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a bunch of other people, princess closers. Oh my God. We're in Dubai. We're talking about some of that stuff. And we'll be talking about that too.
Yeah.
In Dubai, there are princesses where they don't want to do anything, but the guy does everything. Right?
Exactly.
I don't do anything. You cook for me. And then you bring the flowers, you bring the wine, you pay for my apartment,
Yeah.
you pay for my car. Those are princesses in Dubai. Right. So most closers in the industry are like this. Like, I don't do anything, the marketing, everything, nothing. Lay downs or I don't talk to them.
Yep.
Or then you gotta be okay with the commissions you're getting. Or it can be a fucking sales professional, go out there and like hunt and make it happen for you and your family.
Exactly right. Yeah. Learn how to hunt. That's it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. So one day you messaged me, it's like, hey dude, I finally get what you're talking about. Where being a good sales guy is like being a hot girl.
Yeah.
What does it mean by that?
Man. Well, it's your exact definition, right? Like, as a hot girl, you know, there are a million guys approaching them a day. You know, Habibi, let me take you out, get you a Lambo, right? Let me take you out to the nicest place that I can find here in Dubai, right? And it's the exact same thing. When you get really good at sales, there are offer owners now reaching out to you, right? And there are a million people asking you like, hey, can you place me on an offer? Can you help me here? Can you help me develop my skill set on this end, right? And there was actually a time where, because I was with an offer for about a year before I just recently switched. And in the process of looking, you know, as my application was getting out there and as I was getting more eyeballs, there were more and more and more people reaching out to me out of nowhere saying, hey, like, we want to give you an interview. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, awesome. Like, it's my 7th one, like, today. Like, let's do it. Sure. Right. But it was a very crazy feeling. And I feel like it's the closest thing to being a hot girl in Dubai. So
How did that feel?
it was wild. A bit of an ego boost. I can't lie. But I had to ground myself and like get
there
back
you
to
go.
where I was. But
No, guys, I remember I connected with that one recruiter, and
Yeah.
then I saw in the group chat, it's like, "Hey Nick, this company wants to interview you." Like later that day, Nick, this company wants to interview you ASAP. Next day, Nick, this company wants to interview you
Yeah.
ASAP. Book it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what it does. A lot of people, dude, it grinds my gears when people say like, you know, they think this like the offer is the answer, and like this some placement thing is an answer, but a placement agency or placement program cannot make up for lack of skill set. And it's the last thing is I feel like when my mom would tell me, Brian, eat your vegetables. Like I feel like that person right now.
Yeah.
But I'm not here to lie or sell the dream. And if it's like the least sexy message I put out there, I'll still say it because I don't know, like everyone has their own truths, right? Like, you know, for vegan people, that's their truth. And for like carnivore people, that's their truth.
Yeah.
But my truth is, yes, it's not like offer doesn't matter. But when you have the skill set, when you become a great sales professional, exceptional sales professional, you become that hot girl where offer owners seek out to you. Or when you go to them, now you have a f***ing numbers or things you can actually show them with irrefutable proof. They cannot deny it. Right. So now you're more in demand, just like how girls in Dubai, right? Like a hot girl can go to Dubai, they get put on a yacht, they go to Miami, some dude's going to take them out on a Lamborghini.
Right.
Same thing with being a good exceptional sales professional. Because not only now you're starting to learn the skills, but also now you can go out there and hunt, which I get messages from sales managers and recruiters too.
Right.
Is they want sales reps, they can go out and hunt.
Yeah.
Not just they're gonna be like a softie, just like everything done to them.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's going back to that what we were talking about before. Like there's a whole CRM with 30,000 leads in there. Like just go out there and get it.
Yeah.
Right. Unless it's the well's already dry, which I doubt. Right. But that's a byproduct of people just coming in, expecting closes or calls on their calendar, and then just not even following up with them afterwards. So like, oh, I didn't one call close, deal's dead completely. And think about how many deals you can close from just follow up alone. Like one of your students.
Yep.
4 deals in a day, all from follow up.
He made $1,865 in commissions in 1 day with 0 book calls.
Not a bad day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
getting after it. Yeah. How do you feel about Dubai? You're in Dubai now. You're from Oklahoma. How do you feel about it?
Man, I'm not from Oklahoma.
Okay.
I'm living there now, but
You're living there. You came from Oklahoma.
Yeah,
right? How do you
yeah.
feel about it?
day and night difference.
Okay.
Obviously. But I didn't realize like the drivers here, they don't care.
Yeah.
Like I've
About
almost
what?
been ran over like 3 times.
Ah!
Like I'm not mad about it. Like that's
Yeah.
the thing. But like yeah, they don't care. It's
Yeah.
very fun. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Very fun.
Yeah.
GTA.
GTA.
Yeah. What was
Okay.
your first impression? So you land in the airport.
Oh, man.
And then it smells different. It looks different. Nick texted me on WhatsApp. He's like, bro, everything's in Arabic. And I was like,
Yeah.
in an Arabic country, everything's in Arabic.
Yep.
My lord.
I couldn't find my bags when I came here because I landed and I was speaking to the flight attendant. I'm like, "Do you know where our carousel baggage claim is?" They're like, "Oh yeah, they'll tell you when you go out there." I'm like, "Okay." So I walk out there. There's not a single person like with the airline. I'm like, "All right, fantastic." So every time like I get off a plane, no matter where I go, I don't know if it's habitual or what, but I go straight to the bathroom. So like handle my business, right? Went out and then I probably should have like followed the rest of the crew that was like on my plane and like just see where they were going to because they probably had a better idea than me. But I was like, nah, I'll figure it out. So I'm walking around the Dubai airport and I finally find baggage claim firstly. And then, yeah, like I just couldn't like make out anything. All I saw were numbers. And I was like, okay, well, those guys look like they can help me out. So I started speaking to them and they pointed me in the right direction. Finally got it, but we were good. And then, yeah, dude, like driver picked me up, hopped in a Sprinter and then just,
Oh, yeah.
that was insane.
Yeah.
That was insane.
Why was it
Yeah.
insane?
GTA shit, bro.
Yeah.
Like I told you, I was like, man, I feel like I like Drake right now.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I need to make like 6 songs right
Yeah.
after this.
We'll hop in the studio.
Yeah, exactly. We got the mics here. We're good to go.
There we go.
Yeah, we'll go shoot a music video out here.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so so I got you the driver, and then you got to your hotel.
Yeah.
And then we went to the restaurant last night, right? So in downtown, Burj Khalifa in the background.
Insane.
We're having some steak. Like, what was that like?
Unreal. Yeah, like even looking back at it, man, just like trying to take everything all in at once. It was insane. I think everybody should recommend. I recommend everybody like go out and see what this is like. You know, if you are in a like remote position, right? If you're in a remote environment, like it's easy to get like crammed up inside all day.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes you need change. You know, this is definitely an example of it. But yeah, I mean, just feeling really good, feeling really sharp as well. You know, and just happy, man. Like it's a freeing feeling. You know?
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember coming to Dubai for the first time. It made me so hungry. It doesn't have to be Dubai, but I still recommend people to go to
Somewhere.
either like a really big city.
Yeah.
That's really gonna inspire you. I'm not like a super woo-woo guy, but it really does something to your psyche because in
Absolutely.
Korea, we have a saying called a frog in a well.
Yeah.
So what that is imagine a well, like deep down, and the frog's in the bottom of the well. It's like
Yeah.
all the frog knows is the well, right?
Right.
And he's like this like blue circle on the top.
Yeah.
He doesn't know anything else. And then another frog comes by. He's like, hey, dude, there's a whole nother world out there. He's like, really? And then the frog comes out of the well. He's like, holy, there's a whole nother world out there. So I felt the same way when I went to Vegas for the first time. I was like, my brain was exploding with dopamine. And then I came to Dubai and it was like that times even more than that. And what that does is now it makes you more hungry.
Oh, man.
If you go to a place where it makes you so broke and so uncomfortable and so
Yeah.
insecure, good thing.
Exactly.
Depending on how you use it. Because everything, there's no good thing or bad thing. It's just a thing. It's just how you look at it.
It's all perspective. Yeah.
100%. So whether it be, whoever's watching this right now, whether it be Miami for you, maybe it's Dubai, maybe it's Sydney, maybe it's London, Knightsbridge, whatever.
Maybe it's Oklahoma.
Maybe it's Oklahoma. Who knows, man? But I'd recommend people to go somewhere like that and go to a really expensive restaurant.
Yes.
You don't have to order super expensive stuff, but even I actually learned this from Iman Ghazi. A lot of the stuff he's putting on now is more broad now, but back then he was like more like targeted business stuff. But one thing I learned from him is go to a really expensive hotel or restaurant and just order a coffee. Because even the most expensive coffee is gonna be like $8.
Yeah.
It's not like a $200 like steak or whatever. But when you go there, it's like, holy right? It's a whole nother world out there. It makes you more hungry, which is why these days I only try to like fly business class because
Yeah.
well, first of all, Matt told this to me one time. He's like, dude, once you fly business class, you cannot go coach. I'm like, I don't know about that, right? But I flew one time. I was like, oh no, I know exactly what you mean. So your standards increase. June actually put out a post the other day about he went on a date with this Ukrainian girl. And then the Ukrainian girl, June was telling him her story
Right.
of our other friend went on a date, and then the girl started picking like random shit from the fucking menu, and then it came out to like $850 or something, and then so the June was telling him about her about that, and then she's like, oh, only $850 from dinner, and so June was like, oh, I thought that was a lot, because to the girl the standard was high, right?
Yeah.
Same thing is when your standards increase, you don't want to go back down. That's the thing. Once you've tasted 10K a month, you cannot go down.
Yeah.
If I make 10K a month now, I would like, Jordan Belfort was saying this in an interview. He's like,
Yeah.
If I make less than like 10K a day or something, I would go anxious as fuck.
Exactly.
And it sounds crazy, but that's when your standards increase. And we want our standards to increase if you want to do better.
And it's really important to maintain it, because you could have one-off months where things are really good, but then you could always sink back down, right? It's like, I think it's James Clear that said something along these lines, but and we talked about this yesterday too. Like, a man is never the highest version of himself that he wants to be. He's the lowest version of himself that he'll tolerate, right? And a lot of people, what happens nowadays, they get to that really high point and they'll stick to it for maybe, a week or so. They'll go back down as time goes on because they're not practicing. They're not continuously doing things that get them outside of their comfort zone. And it's a byproduct of that. They're just regressing towards the mean, right? And shout out to Eman, man, because I learned the exact same thing from him too. Right. And taking it like one step further, I'm a little bit more woo woo. Right. So this is like the yin and yang kind of thing that we got going on with the colors.
Good and the evil.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But yeah, like, you want to capture those feelings, because when you're around other successful individuals, and it's like your expression with the frog, right? And my saying is a shark is only as big as the tank that it can grow in. Right. Exact same thing. But when you're around other successful people, you can pick up on a lot of sub communication as well. Right? You can see how they sit. You can hear how they talk, right? You can see their body language and how they're, positioning themselves, right? And you can see the cadence in the conversations that they're having. And after a while, you can kind of pick up on that too. But also you can feel the feelings of, like right now, like all I feel is abundance, right? And it's important to really take a couple steps back, right? And really like understand why you're feeling that way. And whenever you get towards like those lower versions of yourself again, then to remind yourself of where you were at that one point. And for me, that's really helped me stay consistent, especially when it comes to just the mindset, right? The inner work that a lot of people don't talk about, especially in sales, because, I would say 95% of it is mental.
Yeah.
Right. Like when you get off, a full day, you're taking 8, 9, 10 hours a day worth of calls. Feels like your brain was in a microwave at the end of it. Right.
Yep.
You got to have things that you can kind of go back to as like your anchor that can support you in the best way possible as you, continuously go on. Like you were saying with Yash, right? Shout out to Yash. I haven't met you yet, but hopefully we can get in contact one day.
He'll sell you something, bro.
You probably will. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Student of the game.
There we go.
But you were saying that he was taking like 14 calls a day?
Back to back, 7 days a week, no days off, oftentimes double, triple booked.
Crazy.
And a lot of salespeople in the space like, I'm working 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week. No, you fucking don't, bro. I know your calendar. I know your data. You work 10 hours a week. You're selling for 10 hours a week. I've seen Yash's calendar, 14 calls back to back, double, triple booked, 7 days a week, no days off. And
Wow.
I know if he does get a no-show or before his calls and after his calls, I know that motherfucker dialing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's really it. Like, how dedicated are you?
Yeah.
Being devoted to your craft like Yash, is super admirable.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're on 14 calls a day, even if everything is double booked and you're still dialing at the end, that's what separates people. From just like your average rep to, someone that is absolutely killing it in the space. Right. So yeah.
Yeah. Also part of it, we talked about at dinner last night too, is being honest with what you really want.
Yeah.
What you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do.
Yeah.
Because some people are hearing like 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't know if I want to do that. Then you got to be okay with the consequences, because I was not willing to do that.
Yeah.
I thought I wanted to. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be like Kobe. I'm going to be like Yash. And all of my number one goal last year in 2023, it wasn't to make more money. I didn't give a fuck about that. It wasn't to like go on more vacations. It wasn't to retire my parents. my only soul of existence was to beat Yash and be number 1 and 7th. That was my only goal. It sounds stupid as we look back, and then Yash and I were talking about the other day.
Yeah.
But and then at one point I realized like I saw Yash's calendar and like what he does. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that, and I'm not willing to do that.
Yeah.
And then I had a talk with Matt about this too. But it's the same thing when Alex Hermosi talks about like working 7 days a week and like 12 hours a day. And then in the comment section, they'll be like, oh, but that's not healthy. You don't have kids, so you don't understand. Oh, dude, that's what Alex wants to do. He's happy fucking doing that. If you're not happy doing that, then don't do it and be okay with the consequences. And I had to be okay with the consequences, which is not being number 1 and 7th level. I became number 2. But I was not willing to do the things that Yash was willing to do, which is why I have respect for him. But that's not the life that I wanted. And Yash probably doesn't want my life either, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's about like, hey, just because like, hey, you want to like, just because a guru drives a Lamborghini or like lives in Dubai doesn't mean you have to.
Yeah.
Right. If you're happy driving a Toyota in like a small town, then like
Perfectly
just be
fine.
honest. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but it's about being like, Matt talked about the ideal lifestyle exercise, which is in like Sales Sniper. He said, okay, cool guys. You guys say you want to make 10K, 20K a month, but why? And do you actually need 10K a month? Because you might need less, you might need more. And then he said, when I was trying to make the money I want to make, I mapped it out. Okay, so what kind of house do I want to live in? What car do I want to drive?
Yep.
And what time do I wake up? He mapped it all out, and he actually lived there for a day. So he rented out an Airbnb, rented the car that he wanted, right? And actually had an ideal perfect day. And then he's like, oh, this is pretty nice. And he mapped it out. How much would it cost me if I were to do this pretty much every day of the month? And it came out to a certain number. I was like, okay, then that's the goal then, right? And so he said that, and I don't think anyone did it on Sniper. There was about 150 reps on Sniper at the time. I'm pretty sure I was the only one that did it. And then I actually did it. Like, what do I want? I think Dubai is kind of cool, but I don't know. But let me fucking go. And I booked out like a hotel that was like $1,000 for a night.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I was a bit like, I had the money, but I was still like, I don't know. But I still did it anyway.
Yeah.
And then I started flying business class. I was like, yeah, this is nice. Right. And so and the thing is like, it might change over time because at one season of your life, you're gonna be like, hey, I want these things, right? I want to go balls to the walls. I want to go take calls after call, like growth season.
Yeah.
Especially when you're starting out, or like when you're trying to break through. That
needed.
season is very important.
Yeah.
You've gone through that. I've gone
needed.
through that. And there are periods where, you know what, dude, I want to spend more time with my friends or family.
Yeah.
I want to have a bit of a life. I want to date a little bit, right? I want to travel. If that's the case, that's fine. Just be okay with the consequences. But I think the reason why a lot of people in the space burn out is because they're just doing like one thing, like just trying to go balls to the walls.
Yeah.
Like they don't see an end in sight.
Right.
Right. And so therefore, like they're like, I don't know, like what's after this?
Exactly right. And I think also a lot of the times people burn out is because they're doing things that aren't actually fulfilling to them. Right. It's like going back to what you actually want versus what you want to want. Right. Two very different things. Some people can see, a drop shipper in Miami doing absolutely crazy things and he has a Lambo and he's living this lifestyle. But do you actually want that, right? Or are you just wanting it for the image, right? Or are you just wanting it because it looks cool, right? And are you actually willing to put in the time and the hours, right? Because that does come with it, no matter what you're doing. You will have seasons and phases where you're like a monk. And that's partially why I went out to Oklahoma, was just so I could be away and be isolated from everything. I was in Colorado before that. Right. But when I was there, like around Denver too, like there were just a lot of distractions and it wasn't giving me clarity on what I actually wanted. Right. So moving out there kind of gave me a little bit more like introspection as far as to what that looked like. Right. And when you actually put yourself in the field and you start doing things, you really do then eventually gain that clarity as far as like, what do I want out of life? And how much are these things going to cost me? Right. And there are some times where, as a rep, you might not feel like the work you're doing is, fulfilling. But when you remind yourself of what you actually want, right, and seeing it more as a bridge to get you from point A to point B, then that gives you a lot more inspiration as you're going too.
Yeah.
Right. Because burnout happens to everybody. And you're like me, where, if you get into something, you are submersing yourself. You're immersifying yourself into it. Right. And you can get burnt out very quickly from that. Right. But if you have that nice balance and if you have those reminders as far as why am I actually doing this, then it turns into burnout, and then you kind of manipulate it and turn it more into just fuel to help you go on.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say you're talking to some dude, maybe they're like 3K a month, right? Kind of like where you were before.
Yeah.
What would be the number one piece of advice you would give him to actually get the 10K a month and actually be able to do the things that he wants to do?
Work with Brian.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
Have belief. have unwavering belief that it's possible. Because when you're in that small little tank, right, and you feel like you can be that great white shark and you're not growing to the size that you want to be at, then when you really understand that, you can then change a lot. And it's going to sound pretty woo-woo. But when you have that belief and you feel like, I can make 10K, and you can even say to yourself, like, I've already made that 10K. Now I just need things to kind of catch up in this realm that I'm living in now. Then things change very quickly, right? And that's where that extra conviction comes in, because you have a sub-communication and a subtonality where it's like, I know this is going to happen, right? So I would say just have that belief that it is possible, right? And then have the process dialed in. And chances are, like, if they're not making 10K yet, they haven't hit 5 figures a month, and if you're kind of stuck at 3 to 5K, then I would just say have a real deep look in their process. See what they're doing. Like, are you putting in the work to actually get yourself to that 10K mark? Or are you just taking inbound calls, right? And if so, then okay, then you have to have a different conversation, right? Like, that's what we did. We had that commission calculator. It's like, how much do you want to make? Okay, well, how many calls do you need to take? Assuming the show rate is this and your close rate is this, how many calls do you need? Okay, well, how many calls will show up on your calendar if they're booked? Okay, great, this many. Okay, well, what about the rest of these calls? How are you gonna get those? Okay, that's where the outbound comes in. Okay, with that outbound, how many people are you calling from this list, this list, this list? Who are you calling, why, when, where? All of that. So that's a very long-winded answer for saying just have belief and have the process to where you know exactly where your numbers are and what you want to do with the time that you have.
Fire. All right.
I would say that.
If you enjoyed this, smash the like button, subscribe to see more, and we're going to go jet ski.
Time to go jet ski.
Peace out. How was it?
That shit was fucking crazy, man. Oh my god.
Alright, Nick, final nights, and then you're back to good old Oklahoma.
No, crazy.
You got all the hometown people DMing you, bro, you're thriving, we knew you would make it, you didn't be successful. Alright, last night, how do you feel?
Insane. Yeah, the craziest week. The energy out here has been insane too. Just, 60% close rate for the week, man. One, because of real sales system, so thank you for that. But yeah, just being out here has been an insane experience all around, so beyond blessed, beyond grateful.
So, alright,
Bali's
that's
the
it
next
for
one.
us. Bali next, alright.